My name is Maria Santos, and I'm 74 years old. For 56 years, I've kept a secret that nearly destroyed me. But last week, I learned that the man who saved my life, Dr. William Matthews, passed away. His widow Eleanor doesn't even know who I am, but I owe her husband everything. I'm sitting here in my kitchen in Phoenix, Arizona, surrounded by pictures of my 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 2 great-grandchildren. None of them would exist if it weren't for what happened on a freezing cold night in Chicago, February 14, 1968, Valentine's Day, the night I was supposed to die. I was 18 years old, married for 6 months to a man I thought was my Prince Charming. I had no idea that by the end of that night, I'd be beaten so badly that the doctors wouldn't recognize me as human. I had no idea that a stranger with kind eyes would risk everything to give me a second chance at life. But most of all, I had no idea that the terrified, broken girl who almost died that night would grow up to save thousands of other women just like her. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how completely I was fooled. Roberto Santos was 24 when I met him at my cousin's quinceañera in 1967. He was the most handsome man I'd ever seen. Tall, dark hair, wearing a perfectly pressed suit that made him look like a movie star. I was just 17, working at my father's grocery store in our Chicago neighborhood, dreaming of becoming a teacher someday. My parents were strict, traditional Mexican immigrants who believed girls should be protected until they were safely married. Roberto swept me off my feet from the very first dance. He brought me flowers every week, sweet-talked my parents in perfect Spanish, and promised them he'd take care of their precious daughter forever. "Mia," my mother would say, watching Roberto help me with my coat, "God has sent you an angel. If only we had known we were inviting the devil into our home." Roberto proposed after just 3 months. I was so young, so naive. When he slipped that tiny diamond ring on my finger, I thought I was the luckiest girl in the world. My parents were thrilled. Roberto had a good job at the steel mill, came from a respectable family, and treated me like a princess. Our wedding was small but beautiful. I wore my grandmother's lace dress, and Roberto cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. In the pictures from that day, you can see how happy I was, how completely I trusted this man with my entire future. I had no idea I was signing my own death warrant. The first sign of trouble came just 2 weeks after our honeymoon. Roberto came home from work angry about something his supervisor had said. I was making dinner, humming to myself, when he suddenly slammed his fist on the kitchen table. "Why didn't you clean the bathroom today?" he demanded. I was confused. The bathroom was spotless. I'd cleaned it that morning. "I did clean it, Roberto. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming." My cheek burned, and I staggered backward, shocked more than hurt. "Don't you ever talk back to me," he said, his voice deadly calm. Then, as if nothing had happened, he kissed my forehead gently. "I'm sorry, mi amor. I had a bad day at work. You know I love you more than life itself." I made excuses for him. He was stressed, adjusting to married life, working long hours. The slap was an accident, a moment of frustration. He'd never do it again. But he did. Again and again and again. Within 3 months, Roberto had completely isolated me from my family and friends. He convinced me to quit my job at my father's store because married women should focus on their homes. He moved us to an apartment across town, away from my parents' neighborhood. "It's better this way, mi corazón, decía, stroking my hair after another disciplinary session. "Just you and me against the world. We don't need anyone else." The beatings became routine. If dinner was 5 minutes late, I got punched. If I spoke to a neighbor, I got slapped. If I cried too loudly during the beatings, I got kicked. But Roberto was clever. He never hit me where it would show. My face was always perfect when we went out in public. The bruises on my ribs, my back, my thighs, those were hidden under long sleeves and modest dresses. To the outside world, we looked like the perfect young couple. Roberto would hold my hand, open doors for me, call me mi princesa, in front of others. People would comment on how lucky I was to have such a devoted husband. If they only knew that the night before, he'd held my head under water in the bathtub until I nearly drowned because I'd forgotten to buy his favorite beer. 6 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. For one beautiful moment, I thought this would save us. Roberto would be so happy about becoming a father that he'd stop hurting me. When I told him, his face went completely white. Then he smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who'd just cornered his prey. "Pregnant," he said softly. "Now you can never leave me, can you, Maria? Now you're mine forever." That's when I realized with crystal clarity that I was going to die in this apartment. If not from the beatings, then from the despair that was eating me alive from the inside. The pregnancy seemed to trigger something even darker in Roberto. The beatings became more frequent, more vicious. He'd punch my stomach and then laugh when I begged him to think about the baby. "If you lose it, we'll just make another one," he'd say, his eyes cold as winter. "I have you for the rest of your life to practice on." By my 4th month of pregnancy, I could barely walk some days. I was losing weight instead of gaining it. The baby was dying inside me, and I was dying with it. February 14th, 1968. I remember the date because Roberto had promised me a special Valentine's surprise. I should have known it wouldn't be flowers and chocolate. I was 5 months pregnant and showing despite how thin I'd become. Roberto had been drinking since he got home from work, which was always a bad sign. But this wasn't his usual beer. He'd brought home a bottle of whiskey, and he was working his way through it methodically. "You know what day it is, Maria?" he asked, his words slurring slightly. "Valentine's Day?" I whispered, keeping my eyes down. Eye contact during his drinking sessions was always dangerous. "That's right, the day of love. The day I'm going to show you exactly how much I love you." He made me cook dinner while he sat at the kitchen table, drinking and watching my every move. I burned the rice because my hands were shaking so badly, and I knew there would be consequences. "Stupid puta," he snarled, throwing his plate against the wall. "Can't even cook rice properly. What kind of wife are you? What kind of mother will you be?" The beating that followed was the worst yet. Roberto seemed possessed by something inhuman. He punched me in the face repeatedly, breaking my nose and splitting my lip. When I fell to the floor, he kicked me in the ribs until I felt something crack. But the worst was yet to come. "You want to know your Valentine's present?" Roberto asked, dragging me by my hair into the bedroom. "I'm going to beat that baby out of you tonight, and then I'm going to beat you to death. But slowly, very, very slowly." For the next 3 hours, Roberto tortured me with a systematic brutality that still haunts my nightmares. He used his fists, his feet, a belt, anything he could find. All while telling me exactly how he was going to kill me and make it look like an accident. By midnight, I couldn't see out of either eye. My left arm was definitely broken, and something was very wrong inside my chest. I could barely breathe. I was bleeding between my legs, and I knew my baby was dying. That's when I felt something break inside my soul. Not my body, Roberto had been breaking that for months, but something deeper. My will to live, my hope, my belief that tomorrow might be better than today. I stopped fighting. I stopped begging. I just lay there on our bedroom floor, waiting for Roberto to finally finish what he'd started. "That's better," he panted, standing over me with the belt still in his hands. "Now you're learning. Now you understand who's in charge here." He kicked me one more time in the stomach, hard enough to lift me off the floor. Then he grabbed his coat and headed for the door. "I'm going out for more drinks," he said casually, like he'd just finished washing dishes. "When I come back, we'll finish this. Don't even think about calling for help. No one would believe you anyway." The door slammed shut, and I was alone with my pain and my dying baby. I don't know where I found the strength. Maybe it was maternal instinct. Maybe it was pure desperation. But as I lay there bleeding on the bedroom floor, something inside me whispered, "Get up, move, now." It took me 20 minutes to crawl to the telephone in the kitchen. Every inch was agony, but I kept thinking about my baby. Maybe it was too late for me, but maybe, somehow, it wasn't too late for my child. I couldn't call my parents. Roberto had threatened to kill them if I ever told them about the beatings. I couldn't call the police. Roberto worked construction with half the cops in our neighborhood, and they all thought he was a great guy. But I remembered something. My cousin Rosa had mentioned a doctor at Chicago General Hospital who'd helped her friend in a difficult situation. She'd been vague about the details, but she'd given me his name, Dr. David Richardson. With trembling fingers, I dialed the hospital's emergency number. "Please," I whispered when someone answered. "I need Dr. David Richardson. Please, I'm dying." The voice on the other end was professional but kind. "Ma'am, are you hurt? Do you need an ambulance?" "No ambulance," I gasped. "My husband, he'll find me. Please, just Dr. Richardson, please." There was a pause. Then, "Hold on. I'm going to transfer you directly to him." When Dr. Richardson came on the line, his voice was immediately different from anyone else I'd spoken to in months. It was gentle, urgent, and completely focused on me. "This is Dr. Richardson. What's your name, sweetheart?" "Maria," I whispered. "Maria Santos. I'm pregnant, and I think my baby is dying. I think I'm dying too." "Maria, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you in immediate danger right now? My husband went out for drinks. He'll be back soon. When he comes back, he's going to—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "How badly are you hurt?" I tried to describe my injuries, but the words came out in fragments. "Broken arm, can't see, bleeding, can't breathe properly." "Maria," Dr. Richardson's voice cut through my panic. "I'm going to help you, but I need you to be very brave for me. Can you get to the hospital? I don't have a car. I can barely walk." "Don't worry about that. I'm sending someone to get you right now. A woman named Sarah. She's going to help you, but you have to be ready to leave the moment she arrives. Can you do that?" I was crying so hard I could barely speak. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." There was a pause. Then Dr. Richardson said something that I've remembered every day for 56 years. "Because no one deserves to die alone and afraid, Maria. And because that baby inside you deserves a chance to live. We're going to give you both that chance." Sarah arrived exactly 18 minutes later. I know because I watched the clock, terrified that Roberto would come back before she got there. When I heard the soft knock on the door, 3 quick taps, just like Dr. Richardson had told me, I crawled to the door and opened it. Sarah was about 30, with kind eyes and gentle hands. She took one look at me and didn't even flinch, though I know I must have looked like something from a horror movie. "Oh, honey," she whispered, kneeling beside me. "What has he done to you?" She helped me gather a few clothes, moving quickly but carefully. Every movement sent waves of pain through my body, but Sarah kept whispering encouragement. "You're so brave, Maria. Just a little more. Dr. Richardson is waiting for you." As we left that apartment, I looked back one last time at the place where I'd been dying for 6 months. The broken dishes, the blood on the bedroom floor, the life I was leaving behind. "Don't look back," Sarah said gently, helping me into her car. "Only forward now. Only toward your new life." I never saw that apartment again. I never saw Roberto again either, though I learned later that he told everyone I'd run off with another man, abandoning him and our unborn child. The neighborhood believed him, of course. Poor Roberto, betrayed by his ungrateful wife. If they only knew the truth. Dr. Richardson was waiting for us at a private entrance to Chicago General Hospital. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kindest eyes I'd ever seen. When he saw me, his professional composure cracked for just a moment. "Jesus," he breathed, then immediately apologized. "I'm sorry, Maria. Let's get you taken care of." For the next 6 hours, Dr. Richardson and his team worked to save my life and my baby's life. My left arm was broken in 2 places. 3 ribs were cracked. I had internal bleeding and severe facial trauma. But the baby, somehow, miraculously, the baby was still alive. "Your little one is a fighter," Dr. Richardson told me as I drifted in and out of consciousness, "just like her mama." When I was stable enough to talk, Dr. Richardson sat beside my hospital bed and explained what would happen next. I couldn't go back to Roberto. He would kill me if he found me. I couldn't stay in Chicago. It wasn't safe. I would need a new identity, a new life, a fresh start somewhere far away. There are people who help women like you, he explained. Women who need to disappear to stay alive. But Maria, you have to understand, if you do this, you can never go back. You can never contact your family again. As far as the world is concerned, Maria Santos will cease to exist. The thought of never seeing my parents again nearly broke my heart. But the thought of Roberto finding me and finishing what he started was worse. What about my baby? I whispered. Dr. Richardson smiled. Your baby gets to live, Maria. That's the whole point. Your baby gets to grow up safe and loved, with a mother who's alive to raise her. The transformation took 2 weeks. While I recovered from my injuries, Dr. Richardson and his network created an entirely new identity for me. Maria Santos died that Valentine's night in Chicago. In her place, Alina Vasquez was born. Alina was a 19-year-old widow from California whose husband had died in Vietnam. She was moving to Phoenix to start over, to raise her unborn child near her late husband's family. The documentation was perfect: birth certificate, social security card, even photographs that somehow looked like me but different enough that no one would make the connection. The key to a new identity, Sarah explained as she helped me dye my hair from black to brown, is believing in it yourself. You have to become Alina completely. Maria's mannerisms, her way of speaking, her memories, they have to stay buried. It was harder than I'd imagined. I had to learn to walk differently, talk differently, even think differently. Maria had been quiet and submissive, trained by Roberto to keep her head down and her voice soft. Alina needed to be confident, independent, capable of surviving on her own. Dr. Richardson visited me every day during those 2 weeks, checking on my physical healing but also preparing me emotionally for what lay ahead. You're not running away, Maria, he told me on my last day in Chicago. You're running toward something better. Don't ever forget that. He gave me an envelope with $2,000 in cash and a piece of paper with a Phoenix phone number. When you get to Arizona, call this number. A woman named Carmen will help you find a place to live and a job. She's part of our network. She'll understand what you've been through. As I boarded the Greyhound bus to Phoenix, 6 months pregnant, and carrying nothing but a small suitcase and a new identity, I was terrified. But for the first time in almost a year, I wasn't afraid I was going to die. Phoenix in 1968 was like stepping into another world. The desert air was clean and dry, so different from Chicago's smoky chill. Carmen Rodriguez met me at the bus station, a sturdy Mexican-American woman in her 40s, who took one look at me and wrapped me in the first genuine hug I'd had in months. Mia, she said, using the same endearment my mother had, welcome to your new life. Carmen had been through something similar 15 years earlier. Her ex-husband had tried to kill her with a baseball bat, and the same network that saved me had given her a fresh start in Phoenix. Now she ran a small boarding house for women, starting over, as she put it. We don't ask questions here, she explained as she showed me to a tiny but clean room. We just help each other heal and build something better. The other women in the house became my surrogate family. There was Ruth, who'd escaped a polygamous cult in Utah. Linda, whose father had been molesting her since she was 12. Jennifer, who'd been sold into prostitution by her own mother and had finally found the courage to run. Each of us had a story that would break your heart, but more importantly, each of us was determined to write a different ending. My daughter Isabella was born on June 15, 1968, after 36 hours of labor. She came into the world screaming with the same determination that had kept her alive through those terrible months with Roberto. When the doctor placed her in my arms, I looked into her tiny face and made a promise that I've kept every day since. You will never know fear like I did. You will never be anyone's victim. You will be strong and free and loved every single day of your life. Isabella was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and Roberto's dark hair but my mother's eyes. As I nursed her for the first time, I felt something I'd thought was dead forever, stirring back to life, hope. Carmen helped me find work as a seamstress in a small factory. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work that I could do while raising Isabella. The other women in the boarding house took turns babysitting, and slowly, we all began to heal together. But I never forgot Dr. Richardson and what he'd given me. Every time I looked at Isabella's beautiful face, I remembered that we were both alive because a stranger had been willing to risk everything to help us. Over the next few years, Elena Vasquez became as real as Maria Santos had ever been. I learned English better, saved every penny I could, and eventually moved out of Carmen's boarding house into a small apartment of my own. Isabella was a bright, happy child who filled my life with laughter and purpose. When she was 3, I enrolled in night school to finish my high school diploma. When she was 5, I started taking college classes. My dream of becoming a teacher, the dream Maria had abandoned, became Elena's driving goal. It took me 7 years, working full-time and raising Isabella alone. But one finally graduated with a degree in elementary education. At my graduation ceremony, as I walked across that stage, I thought about Dr. Richardson and wished he could see what his kindness had made possible. Isabella was 8 when I got my first teaching job at a school in South Phoenix. Many of my students were from immigrant families, kids who reminded me of the little girl I'd once been, full of dreams but facing obstacles that seemed impossible to overcome. I threw myself into teaching with the same determination that had gotten me through those dark days in Chicago. These children deserved someone who understood struggle, who knew what it felt like to have the world stacked against you. In 1975, Carmen asked me to help with a new arrival at the boarding house. A young woman named Patricia had escaped from her husband in Denver. He'd broken both her arms and threatened to kill their 2-year-old son. As I sat with Patricia, holding her baby while she cried, I realized this was how I could honor what Dr. Richardson had done for me. I could be the next link in the chain, helping other women find their way to safety. Over the years, I helped dozens of women transition to new lives in Phoenix. I taught them English, helped them find jobs, babysat their children while they went to school. Most importantly, I showed them that survival was possible, that you could build something beautiful from the ashes of your old life. We called ourselves Carmen's Angels at first, then later, the Phoenix Network Women who had risen from the ashes of our former lives to help others do the same. In 1983, 15 years after that terrible Valentine's night, I received a letter that changed everything. It was from Dr. Richardson, or rather, from Dr. William Matthews, as he was calling himself now. Dear Elena, the letter began, and I knew immediately who it was from. I hope this letter finds you and Isabella healthy and happy. A mutual friend gave me your address and told me about the wonderful work you're doing in Phoenix. I wanted you to know how proud I am of the woman you've become. He went on to explain that he'd had to change his own identity and move to Oregon for safety reasons. The work he was doing, helping women like me, had made him enemies, and he'd had to disappear just as completely as I had. You and Isabella were my first success story, he wrote. Knowing that you both survived and thrived has given me the strength to continue this work for 15 years. You saved my faith in what we're doing just as much as I helped save your life. We began corresponding regularly. I told him about my teaching, my work with other survivors, Isabella's achievements in school. He told me about the other women he'd helped, the network that was growing across the country, the lives that were being saved. But most importantly, he told me about his own family, his wife Eleanor, who didn't know about his secret work, and their 3 children. Reading about his normal family life, I felt a complicated mix of gratitude and sadness. This man had saved hundreds of women, but the cost had been enormous. He was living a double life, carrying secrets that would have crushed most people. By the 1990s, the Phoenix Network had helped over 300 women start new lives. Some became teachers like me, others became nurses, social workers, counselors, a few even became doctors and lawyers. All of them were living proof that one act of kindness could change everything. Isabella grew up surrounded by these strong women and their stories of survival. She learned from an early age that some people in the world were dangerous, but other people were willing to risk everything to help. When she was 16, I finally told her the truth about her father and our escape from Chicago. "I want to be like Dr. Matthews," she said after I'd finished the story. "I want to help people the way he helped us." Isabella became a social worker, specializing in domestic violence cases. She's now the director of a women's shelter in Phoenix that has helped over 2,000 women and children escape abusive situations. My grandchildren, Isabella's 3 kids, have grown up volunteering at the shelter, continuing the cycle of service that Dr. Richardson started. In 2003, on Isabella's 35th birthday, we established the Dr. William Matthews Memorial Fund, even though he was still alive at the time. The fund provides emergency assistance to women escaping domestic violence, temporary housing, legal fees, medical care, whatever they need to start over. We never used his real name publicly, of course. His safety was still paramount. But privately, the network of women he'd saved made sure his legacy lived on. Last week, I received the phone call I'd been dreading for years. Dr. Richardson, Dr. Matthews, had passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 89. I cried for 3 days straight. Not just for the loss of the man who'd saved my life, but for all the conversations we'd never have. All the women he'd never get to help. All the gratitude I'd never fully expressed. The network organized a private memorial service in Phoenix. 47 women attended, all of us survivors he'd helped over the years. We shared stories, cried together, and marveled at the lives we'd been able to build because of his courage. Dr. Sarah Chen flew in from San Francisco. She was the first woman Dr. Matthews had saved, back in 1963. She told us about his wife Eleanor, who was just learning the truth about her husband's secret life. "She deserves to know what her husband accomplished," Dr. Chen said. "She deserves to know that he was a hero." We decided to reach out to Eleanor, to let her know about the legacy her husband left behind. Not the details, those secrets died with him, but the impact. The lives saved, the children who grew up safe, the ripple effect of kindness that continues to this day. I'm writing a letter to Eleanor Matthews. I don't know if I'll ever send it, but I need to write it. I need her to know what her husband meant to me, to my daughter, to hundreds of other women whose names she'll never know. Dear Mrs. Matthews, I want to write. You don't know me, but your husband saved my life 56 years ago. I was 18 years old, pregnant, and being beaten to death by my husband when Dr. Matthews, your William, gave me a chance to live. I want to tell her about Isabella, about my career as a teacher, about the women I've helped in return. I want her to know that her husband's kindness created a legacy that spans generations. But mostly, I want her to know that William Matthews was loved and remembered by hundreds of women who wouldn't exist without him. We called ourselves his angels, but the truth is, he was ours. I'm 74 years old now, and not a day goes by that I don't think about Dr. Richardson and what he did for me. When I wake up in my comfortable home in Phoenix, when I have coffee with Isabella and my grandchildren, when I see former students who've grown up to become teachers and doctors and leaders in their communities, all of it traces back to that terrible night in 1968, when a stranger chose to risk everything to save a young woman he'd never met. Maria Santos died that Valentine's night in Chicago. She was buried in pain and fear and hopelessness. But from her ashes rose Elena Vasquez, who became a teacher, a mother, a helper of other women in crisis. And from Elena's work rose dozens of other strong women, and from their work rose hundreds more. That's Dr. Richardson's real legacy. Not just the 247 women he saved directly, but the thousands of lives those women went on to touch. The children who grew up safe, the students who learned from teachers who might have been murdered decades ago, the patients treated by doctors who might never have been born. Isabella calculated it once, for a school project when she was in college. She tried to trace the ripple effects of Dr. Richardson's work, the women he saved, their children and grandchildren, the people they helped in their careers, the lives touched by those people. The numbers were staggering. Tens of thousands of people, living better lives because one doctor decided that saving women was worth any risk. People sometimes ask me if I ever tried to find Roberto, if I ever wanted revenge for what he did to me. The answer is no. Roberto was a sick, violent man who nearly destroyed me. But focusing on him would have been like staring into the darkness when I could have been walking toward the light. Dr. Richardson showed me what real love looks like. Not the possessive, controlling love that Roberto claimed to feel, but genuine love. The kind that puts another person's welfare before your own safety. That risks everything to help a stranger, that asks for nothing in return. Real love doesn't try to own or control. Real love liberates. Real love says, I see that you're suffering, and I'm going to help you even if it costs me everything. That's what Dr. Richardson did for me, and for hundreds of other women. He liberated us from lives of fear and pain, and he never asked for anything in return, except that we use our freedom to help others. Today, the network that started with Dr. Richardson includes thousands of people across the country. Doctors, nurses, social workers, teachers, lawyers, business owners, all united by the belief that no woman should have to die because she married the wrong man. We have safe houses in dozens of cities. We have lawyers who work pro bono to help women get protective orders and divorces. We have job placement programs, education assistance, childcare networks. We have therapists who specialize in trauma recovery, and doctors who treat injuries without asking questions. The Phoenix branch alone has helped over 3,000 women since I started working with Carmen in 1975. Some of them were beaten like I was. Others were threatened, stalked, or psychologically tortured. A few were trying to escape human trafficking or forced marriages. Each one of them represents a victory over the darkness that Dr. Richardson helped me escape from all those years ago. My proudest moment came 5 years ago when Isabella's daughter, my granddaughter Alina, named after my new identity, graduated from medical school. She's now a resident in emergency medicine, and she's already helped several women escape dangerous situations. I want to be like Great Uncle William, she told me at her graduation party. That's what she calls Dr. Richardson, Great Uncle William, the family hero she never met but whose influence shaped her entire life. The circle continues. As I finish writing this story, I'm looking at a picture on my kitchen table. It's from Isabella's wedding 20 years ago, 3 generations of women who exist because Dr. Richardson chose courage over safety on a cold night in 1968. I'm in the center, wearing a blue dress and the biggest smile you've ever seen. Isabella is radiant in her wedding gown, pregnant with her first child. My granddaughter Alina, then just 8 years old, is holding my hand and grinning at the camera. None of us would be here without Dr. William Matthews. Maria Santos was supposed to die on February 14, 1968. Instead, she was reborn as Alina Vasquez, who lived to raise a daughter, teach hundreds of children, and help dozens of women escape the kind of hell she'd barely survived. That's the miracle Dr. Richardson performed, not just saving one life, but creating new possibilities for love, for hope, for service to others. I never got to thank him properly. I never got to tell him that his kindness didn't just save me, it transformed me. It turned a broken, terrified girl into a woman who spent her life helping others find their own strength. But maybe this story is my thank you. Maybe telling the world about the doctor who risked everything to save strangers is the only gratitude that really matters. Dr. William Matthews, wherever you are now, please know this. The scared pregnant teenager you saved in 1968 grew up to live a life of joy and purpose. She raised a daughter who became a social worker. She taught hundreds of children who went on to make the world better. She helped dozens of women escape from the darkness you pulled her from. Your kindness didn't just ripple outward, it became a tsunami of hope that's still growing stronger every day. Thank you for giving me life. Thank you for showing me what love really looks like. Thank you for proving that one person's courage can change everything. Because of you, Maria Santos got to become Alina Vasquez. And Alina got to become a teacher, a helper, a grandmother, a force for good in this world. Because of you, the light one. That's a legacy worth dying for. It's an even better legacy to live for.